All right, we're recording. You can go ahead, Gretchen.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Gretchen Bliss and I am the Cybersecurity Director at UCCS. And we have a grant from the National Security Agency's Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity to put out a 6-part series on how to become a faculty. How to build a resume, and it's specifically for students, right? Because a lot of times students don't know what it takes to enter into this conversation and share their knowledge from an educational perspective. And so what we did is we've broken it down into 6 different parts, and we're very fortunate to have Danny Pape, the head of our Career Center, here to talk today about writing an effective cover letter. So, there's lots of different bits and pieces that go into becoming faculty, and we wanted to make sure to explore it and answer some of the questions that you have in regards to that. So, Megan, I want to turn it over to you before we go to Danny.
Yeah, so thank you for those of you that are attending today or watching this online. We're really excited in the College of Business to have our NSA grant that's focused on faculty development. And so helping people become effective faculty members or enter a career as being a faculty member in cybersecurity. And we have a wonderful partner in the Campus Career Center. And I will say for all students who, if you are a UCCS student, the College of Business Career Development Center, which I oversee, or the Campus Career Center, which Danny oversees, we are all here to help you. So we're really excited about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Danny so he can dive into our topic today about effective cover letters. And thank you so much, Danny, for doing this for us.
Yes, thank you, Megan and Gretchen. So we will spend 20-30 minutes talking a little bit about how to write an effective cover letter. Cover letters can be really hard, can be kind of daunting to think about how to really put yourself out there as you're applying to faculty roles. And so hopefully we'll cover a few things today that are relevant. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll talk a little bit about questions that anyone might have around cover letters. We'll talk about the purpose of even why companies or organizations, or in this case institutions, ask for cover letters. What is the purpose? What's the makeup of a good cover letter? So we'll dive into kind of the logistics, and then we'll provide some general tips at the end. So I always like to ask what makes people nervous about writing cover letters. So for those on the call now, if you could put a few things in the chat, that would be great, even if you're a current staff member or faculty member. And I'll read a few out as they jump on. Addressing the right audience. That can be hard too. Who are you writing this to? Sometimes you don't know who the right audience is. Typos, absolutely. Presenting myself clearly. We'll talk about that. Knowing the details that are relevant. Good, keep throwing a few things in there. These are all things that we'll definitely dive in and talk about today. So if you're anything like me, this is both how I tell stories and how I write. And it's all over the place, right? And so putting yourself out there and telling your own story is even harder to write about. And if this resonates with you, just know that writing cover letters is hard. A few things to note on the front end of writing cover letters: you should never try to put a cover letter together in an hour. So if something's due today, we hope that if an application's due today, we hope that you'll have at least spent a couple days before that putting your cover letter together. It's just not something you should throw together quickly. It's something you should write, come back to it the next day, rewrite, get other opinions, and go through it. So writing's hard, and telling your stories just as hard. When you combine both, it makes it double hard for me. So the purpose of a resume and cover letter is often, there's a myth out there that a resume and cover letter gets you the job. Actually, the point of a resume and cover letter when you apply is to get you an interview. So if you think of it from that perspective, that'll make it much easier. Your resume and cover letter, it doesn't get you the job, it gets you the chance to get the job. You are ultimately gonna put yourself in the best light when you get that interview and get to sell yourself. Of course, it does other things as well. It provides information to the employer on you. It's a marketing document in its essence, and it provides that first impression of you and why you might be a good fit. So remembering that it doesn't get you the job, it gets you the chance to get the job is important. Now let's focus in specifically on just a cover letter. What it does is of course, it's typically supplements your resume. So it's connected to your resume in some way and can repeat some information, but it can also tell new information to the reader that might not be on your resume. It should fully explain or provide more information on how your experiences and skills match the needs of the employer. That was mentioned in the chat. So you have to connect what they're looking for with what you've got, right? Now, one thing I like to point out is if you don't have every single qualification, still apply. Now, there are certain industries, academia being one, where they'll typically have a list of preferred and required qualifications. Those required qualifications are important to meet. As a public state organization, we have to showcase how every applicant meets those required qualifications. So really cue into those, but also then look at those preferred. Preferred are just that, they're preferred. We hope the candidates have those things, but if they don't, and we think they're a good fit, we can still look at them and hire them. And then lastly, why a lot of companies and organizations use cover letters is honestly just to see what your writing skill set is. So they use it as a writing sample. So that's why it's important not to throw something together really quickly. So a couple cover letter guidelines. Never use templates. This is true of resumes as well. You know how you can go into Microsoft Word and open up templates, or you might be able to find templates online. Avoid using those. You should be creating these documents yourself. You should be doing the extra work in Microsoft Word to do the tabbing, do the bolding, do the extra work to make sure that that document looks exactly like you want. Companies and organizations have told us they do not like to see those templates. 2, always start with a blank sheet for each new cover letter. So there is a tendency for people to want to write one cover letter and use that for the majority of the positions they apply for. That is not a good strategy. You want the reader of your cover letter to read it and feel like it was completely written for them and for that role and for that position and organization. So start new. Don't have what we would call a standard cover letter that you're going to use with everyone. Please, please, please start new. It's worth the extra effort. Tailor, tailor, tailor. This has been mentioned already several times. You have to showcase the company that you wrote this to them. So look at the description, go and look at their website, go and look at those specific departments, academic departments, look at the faculty, look at their research interests and how your background and research interest align with what they're looking for. It's very important to spend that time. The best way to put this is I would rather you apply to 10 places very well versus shotgunning your resume and cover letter to 50 places without tailoring. You're gonna get more callbacks, you're gonna get more engagement. And then last, I'm gonna tell just a really quick cover letter fail story. So at my previous institution, for a pretty high level role within the Division of Student Affairs where I sit, there was some candidates being brought in for those roles. And we got to see their documents as they were coming in to their interviews. And so I was looking over one of the candidates, and I was at an institution, I was at the University of Tennessee, and almost in the very first paragraph for this candidate, it said, "I'm really excited to work with University of Vermont students." So clearly that person used a standard cover letter and just didn't find that detail. I quickly pointed that out. Many others found that, and this is someone we absolutely did not hire for that role. And so those little details can matter. And so that's why I want you to always start from a blank slate. So now we're going to dive into more of the logistics or the makeup of a good cover letter. So of course, up at the top, you should have a header. We like for you to use your same header from your resume so that the two documents look connected. I'll show you an example here in a sec. You should include contact name, position title, and company address of who this is going to. Now, sometimes this is really hard because they do not have that posted on the position, job description. And so a lot of people have a tendency to not go do that extra research. You could always put the department head or someone that probably is going to supervise this person as someone to address it to. Try to address it to someone. So that's the same concept there. Avoid the phrase "to whom it may concern." That's too broad, too impersonal, and doesn't provide anyone information about who this is to. So you can see a few examples below of broader of who you could address this to, broader statements like "Dear HR manager," dear search committee. That's never going to be a bad phrase to use in higher education, because almost every position we use search committees to hire or to at least get people through the process. So you can put something like that, address it to someone. Here's an example of one. I'm going to use my own example so I can, you guys can find faults in those. But as you can see, I used my same header from my resume so that where my name is and where my address and contact information is, it makes the two documents look consistent. And then you can see you can see I pointed out a few folks that I was trying to send this cover letter to because they were heading the search. And so a really quick way to address is including those people. I also put in the very broad phrase of the search committee. So Greg, I think I see a question, so I'm going to get to you now. If a posting has a specific person's email address, is it a good idea to find the full name and address the cover letter to them? Absolutely. Go do that extra research and always send it to them as you can outside of the application. Now, you have to, for almost every academic institution, you're going to have to send it through the application, but it might not hurt to reach out and introduce yourself to the hiring manager. They might not be able to respond or provide much information for you, but it never hurts to do that. So next, in the first paragraph, you're going to provide some information, avoid ignore the 2 to 3 sentences. It's most likely going to be a little bit longer than that, but you're going to state which position you're applying for, how you learned or found out about it. This is really important, particularly if someone referred you within the organization. You can briefly state why you're interested. And just give a little bit of the background of the basic experience or qualifications you have that make you a good fit. So to show you an example of that, you can see, I talked about applying for the position. I showcased some of my background experience of what makes me a good fit for the role. The second paragraph's all about emphasizing relevant experience, skills, and education and qualifications that make you a good fit. Now, it's important not to just list things. We see this a lot in cover letters. This is not a repeat of your resume. This is a chance to better tell your story of why you're a good fit. So don't just tell me you've done something. Give me more of a story of how you can showcase that qualification or skill. That's going to resonate. 1, it's going to make you unique and stand out. 2, and 3, it's the differentiation between any other applicant, right? We could all have the same skills or qualifications that are required for the job, but how we've gained those skills and qualifications is different. And so that's how you separate yourself, and that's how you showcase yourself. You can also talk about why you could describe the company culture fit and why you're a fit into that and the value you can bring to that. Again, that shows that the letter was written towards the organization. This can be broken into 2 paragraphs or even more sometimes, depending on the length or the type of position. But really tell your story. This is important. Don't list things. Don't list responsibilities. Give me a story to back up the qualification or skill that makes you a good fit. So just to quickly show, I know this might be a little blurred, but just to give you an example of, you can see there's more detail there. I'm telling a story. I'm really showcasing how I've gained skills. So for example, that top paragraph, I'm talking about employer relations, which is a really important part of any career center. So I talked about then how I gained that skill. or that qualification. Detail, 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 and story, story, story. Tell your story. Don't leave without someone knowing something that makes you unique or different. The last paragraph is going to be just basically kind of closing or ending that letter, thanking them for their time, giving your contact information again, if you'd like, to really showcase how easy it is to get in touch with you. You can reiterate interest. You can also be kind of forward and say, I look forward to hearing from you. I think those are all really good ways to end a cover letter and really telling that story. So this is just to add to that, ending with sincerely and giving us a few spaces and putting your name. Now, you don't have to sign your name if you're not sending it in physically, which almost never happens anymore. You can leave that blank, or you could create a signature in Word. It's pretty easy to do. So that's how you kind of end a document here. So here's just an example of a closing paragraph. It does not have to be long, and I think it never hurts to put in your contact information again. Something that I didn't note is at the bottom below my name, you can see the word enclosure. This just lets anyone reading this document know that you had other documents that you attached to the application, things like a resume, a list of references, or whatever. It just connects the documents. Again, detail wins. So here is a full cover letter put together, all together. A couple things I want to note here that I haven't yet is there's no indentations. So true business writing and format looks just like this, single spaced typically. Staying to one page is typically pretty important. Now, in the academia world, they do typically, they can go longer, but I would always be very efficient with my writing. I wouldn't repeat myself throughout those documents. I'd make sure you're really giving and showcasing that information. Greg asked a question, sorry, your cover letter seems rather dense with information, white space. Yeah, there's a fine line, and I'm glad you pointed out there's always things I could do better on my cover letter. I do not want you to think that this is a perfect cover letter. So you have to find that balance. Now, I've seen cover letters that are 1 to 2 paragraphs long, and it has too much white space. So you kind of have to find that balance. So I agree that I tried to fit a lot in here because I wanted to really tell my story, and I decided that I thought taking details out was going to hurt me more than trying to fit in more white space. So it's not perfect. There is no perfect cover letter. I just don't think that exists. So I hope that helps, Greg. Couple general tips. Using the same format and header as your resume is never a bad thing. Again, it connects the 2 documents. 3 to 4 paragraphs in length, give or take, should be the goal. Again, there might be reasons you go longer depending on the role and the type of positions you're applying for. Tailor each cover letter to those roles. Don't just have that standard cover letter. Absolutely check for spelling and grammar errors. I mean, the majority of organizations are going to not read every single word of a core cover letter. They're going to skim. And so if they see those typos or mistakes, it's just a reason to put your resume aside. Vary your sentence structure. I'm not very good at this. Writing is not something I view myself as a strong skill, and I tend to use the same types of language and sentence structure over and over. And that's why it's important to have other people check and get critiqued. Visit your career centers. Give it to other faculty members who can give you that feedback. Go to the writing center. They can provide a lot of really good English and grammar structure types of feedback to you. Really, really important. Focus on what you can do for the employer, right? I think sometimes we want to focus on what they can do for us. Well, there'll be a time and place to have those conversations, but focus on the value you can bring, and sign your letter if it's a hard copy, but it really rarely is. What do you think, Greg? Another question. What do you think about submitting a Word doc version or a PDF if given the choice? I always lean towards PDF. PDF does not typically mess up formatting between different types of operating systems and computers. and keeps things pretty standard. Word documents all the time formatting gets messed up between, say, let's say you built your Word doc on an Apple and you send it to someone with a Dell, it can get messed up, Microsoft. So PDF, but you don't have to make that PDF till you're completely done with that document, because once it's in PDF version, it is now typically uneditable. So just a few tips and tricks. So I'll have folks kind of quickly just in the chat write maybe a few key takeaways, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. I'll be looking at the chat here to see if anyone has takeaways, things that they didn't know before, things that they didn't realize were so important. And if nothing, that's okay. All right, well, nothing new, but good overview. Thanks, Greg. Any questions? Things that you wanted to know about, things that didn't get answered? I'll pop up for you. All right, well, I will throw it back to Megan here, and I'll stay on in case anyone does have any kind of follow-up.
Yeah, thank you for the overview, Danny. We appreciate your time, and thank you for those of you who were able to attend. And if you want your resume or your cover letter reviewed, the Career Center is a great place to go. I'm the College of Business Career Development Center. If you're a College of Business student, we'd be happy to help you as well. So if you need help drafting a cover letter for your next role, please feel free to reach out to any of us. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate you being here today. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.